What's up, everybody? Welcome to Your Fielder's Choice, this live before lock show. We are here ready to go for week 2. My name is John Maffa. I'm joined here by Devin Frank and Mike Mislinski, and we're ready to talk some shop, talk some football. How's it going, guys?
Going well, man. It's Sunday. Best day of the week right now.
Yeah, man. Week 2. This is the best. This is what we live for.
Yep. And looking for a bit of bounce back week from last week. We'll get into some of that, shortly here. But yeah, live to find another day, and let's see what happens. So we're gonna jump right in real quick to it. We're gonna go to our cash plays. Deb will walk us through some of his favorite plays by position. We'll then move over to GPP, where Miz can tell us some of his more sneakier tournament plays, along with some stacks. We'll then do a little bit of a summary, talk about Vegas. Plenty of time to enter those lineups before kickoff. So, Dev, let's jump into cash and tell us what you like at QB today.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of like a fantastic mid-range slate. We have so many guys in the 6K range at essentially every position day that are just in great spots. And it starts with one game. We've got the Chargers versus Dallas. Dallas is really banged up defensively. Lawrence broke his foot. And then Randy Gregory's out as well. So missing 2 of the better defenders in an already pretty weak defense. We saw what Tom Brady did to him last week, in which they gave up 379 pass yards and 32 fantasy points. So puts Justin Herbert in a fantastic spot. And on the flip side, we saw what Dak did, putting up over 400 yards, throwing the ball 50 plus times. I think they run a little bit more this game, but it's going to be the Dak show all year long. He's going to throw a ton, and they're both just Herbert's 6'7" on DraftKings, Dak 6'8" is going to both in fantastic spots. Highest game total on the day. That's where I expect most of the ownership to go. Probably going to see more on Dak because he had the bigger day fantasy wise. I actually featured Herbert in our article because of the Cowboys being a little bit banged up. And Herbert was actually really good week 1. He had 337 yards. Just the difference is he only had that 1 touchdown. So I anticipate a few more touchdowns this week. I personally haven't even decided which one I'm going to play yet. I like both. So, that's a decision to be made. I think both come through. And then on FanDuel, you have Kyler Murray as well, who you can get pretty comfortably with a pretty good build. So,
yeah, those seem to be some of the names that most people are talking across the industry here. It was very encouraging to see Dak come out last week and kind of rip it up. That was a huge question mark in the offseason. Will he be himself? Will he just jump right into it? Will it take him some time to get warmed up? All that. I think he answered a lot of those questions.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, like you said, last year was a stud. So in good situations, like maybe today's game, where the games tend to be high scoring with the Cowboys, their defense is not, all that great. I think it's a good matchup for them as well.
Yeah. And I do like, if you decided to be different, this is a really strong quarterback slate. And Tom Brady's in a smash spot. Josh Allen's going to bounce back. He's still very affordable on DraftKings. Russell Wilson's in a good spot, probably more of a GPP play at his price. And then Jalen Hurts has shown, about a 5-game sample now between last year and this year. And he crushes. He gets so much opportunity with his rushing upside. He had 62 yards on the ground and 264 through the air. So all of those guys are legit plays. And then I'll throw a punt out there for you for one of the off slates, maybe. Teddy Bridgewater at 5-4 against a terrible Jacksonville team would be the lone punt. I wouldn't go there in main slate on either site for cash. You don't need it. But just if you wanted to be different for GPPs or maybe one of the off slates, you needed some of the value. Teddy Bridgewater would be the punt option I would look at.
Yeah. I mean, it's never a bad idea to go with the guy who's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think last week they showed that they're very viable focal point to look at. They made the Texans look good, and the Texans are not good. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump over to running back here and run over some of these plays.
Well, we know the first
What do
guy.
you got?
Miz told us 100%. Najee
100.
Harris was that. If you watched the show before the show, we had some fun with that. Najee Harris was on the field 100% of the snaps, which, as Miz mentioned, just literally doesn't happen. He didn't have a great debut, only 45 yards, but again, he was on the field 100% of the time. Now you give him a Raiders team that played Monday. Sorry, dog. Played Monday, gave up 189 yards, is flying cross country for an early game against the Steelers that looked really good. Najee's he's gonna have a great game, and he's gonna be very, very popular. So that's where you're starting on both sites. He's especially affordable on FanDuel at only 6.1K. I would anticipate chalk on both sides though. Behind him, we've got Carson. Same thing. Penny got hurt, so Carson's going to be the man here. 6-1 on DraftKings is a very good price. 6-7 on FanDuel. Still's going to see some ownership, but really that's more of a DraftKings price for sure. And then, of course, you've got your big boys, Kamara, McCaffrey in play. Nick Chubb. Do not sleep on Nick Chubb today. Browns are going to just thrash Houston here. My only worry with Chubb is of course, always Hunt's behind him, but I anticipate Chubb goes for 100 plus today. DraftKings is daring us to play Zeke today at 6-2. He's 7-5 on FanDuel. That's a pretty drastic difference in the two sites. So Zeke's a nice price in that same mid-range. Darrell Henderson's your value. Austin Eckler's a FanDuel pricing play. And then kind of my sneaky gut call of the day is David Montgomery. It's going to come in lower owned. So, probably more of a GPP play, but again, off slates, if you're looking to be a little bit different, David Montgomery is a name to keep on your radar as well.
I love David Montgomery. He was that guy last year for us where, always kind of under the radar. Like, obviously people know who he is, but he never really gets talked about, and he always kind of produces good value for what he's going for. It's not like he's going for $9,000. So
yeah, he's very cheap on DraftKings at 6-1 compared to 7-3 on FanDuel.
Yeah, and all things considered, he's definitely a viable pick. If, like you said, you're trying to be a little bit contradictory and play one of those alternate guys. But yeah, no, I agree with all these. I think you kind of nailed on the head with Najee Harris. Let's see what happens there. He was also part of our Be a Goldfish category.
That's right.
Where we said, don't let last week scare you off this week. We believed in him 2 weeks ago. We believe in him now, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Let's jump into wide. We about to say something?
Yep. I was going to give you a fun stat on David Montgomery.
I'm into fun stats.
Why I like him. He the first 10 weeks of last season, he didn't have a single game over 100 yards. And then they had their bye week was week 11. And then the last 6 weeks, he had 3 games over 100 yards, and he finished the last 6 weeks with just short of 600 yards. So almost 100 yards a game the last 6 weeks. And then week 1, he put up 100 yards. So again, I'm not telling you to play him in main cash because he's going to come in low ownership, but just a name to have on, some alternate lineups and maybe some off slates.
Cool. Don't go all in on him, but feel free to.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right, let's jump into wide receiver here. What do we got?
All right, wide receiver. Again, you got this mid-range. This mid-range is absolutely loaded, and it starts with the receivers for the 2 quarterbacks we talked about. Only these 2 teams in Dallas and Chargers were the only 2 teams that had 2 receivers dominate the target share the way that these guys did. You have Keenan and Mike Williams for the Chargers. Keenan's going to be pretty chalky. Mike Williams does have a very nice FanDuel price at 5-6. If you couldn't get up to Keenan and you wanted a piece of this Chargers passing attack, I do like Mike Williams on FanDuel at 5-6. He's 6-1 on DraftKings. So that's one of those FanDuel pricing plays, and there's not many of them. FanDuel's typically more expensive on every player. But Mike Williams is one of those pricing plays. So you got Keenan, Mike Williams, especially if you're playing Herbert, you can pair Herbert with one of those 2. And then you've got Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Gallup got hurt. Cooper and Lamb are going to get all the targets they can handle. They had 17 and 15 last week, which is nuts. Keenan Allen had 13. Mike Williams had 12. So again, you're looking at 25 on up between combined for these groupings of receivers. Expect them all to see ownership. CeeDee Lamb comes in at a really nice price off of Amari Cooper. I especially like CeeDee Lamb on FanDuel, where he's 1,000 less than Cooper. Cooper's only 400 more on DraftKings, so you got a bit more of a decision there. Again, all of these guys make fantastic plays. And then a guy we featured in the Monday Reactions article, Cooper Kupp, comes in at just $6K on DraftKings, 6.2 on FanDuel. He had 10 targets, over 100 yards and a touchdown. He's facing a Colts team that just got lit up last week. It's just a very, very nice price. He's underpriced for his role with Stafford. We talked about Stafford and how he really likes to lock him to a favorite receiver throughout the year, and that appears to be Cooper Kupp. So GPP play, nice little pivot, Robert Woods. Robert Woods is in a nice spot today. He did get 2 end zone targets last week. So don't sleep on Robert Woods. He only had 4 targets, but 2 of them were in the end zone. So Robert Woods, fantastic GPP pivot off of Cooper Kupp. We also have, again, of course, you got your Tampa Bay receivers, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, all these guys, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. DK is one of those FanDuel pricing plays, again, where he comes in cheaper on FanDuel than he does DraftKings. So that's a guy, especially for FanDuel, to have on your radar. And then Jamar Chase is my favorite kind of lower value. I came into the season a little bit worried about the drops. He put all of that to bed. He was phenomenal, 101 yards on 7 targets and a touchdown.
Even Joe Burrow called that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was far from the only one. Pretty much the entire industry was down on him. And he said, hold my beer, proved us all wrong. So, and Chicago just got lit up by the deep balls. So I really like Jamar Chase at that price. And then the last name I'll throw out there is Cedric Wilson for Dallas. Gallup is out. Wilson's going to take that 3rd spot. He's 3.1 on DraftKings. It's a punt play. You don't really need it this week, but that's a good game environment. He is going to be on the field in a pass happy offense. So you can justify the play if it gives you the salary that you really like with the rest of your lineup.
Yeah. And any other punt options here that you have? I was looking at one of the articles you mentioned. You did mention Tim Patrick. So wondering what you think there. Yeah. Tim
Patrick. Cole Beasley's really cheap at 4.6. Emmanuel Sanders as well. Jalen Waddle's pretty cheap. He had a decent debut with 61 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith's only 5.4. Again, he had a pretty good day. So there are some options. Keep an eye on the Browns. If Schwartz is out, then which I do not anticipate he will be, but if Schwartz were to sit, then Peoples-Jones would be my favorite punt. If Schwartz plays, he's a punt. Peoples-Jones is a punt either way. But again, I don't know that you need these this week, but they are there if you wanted them.
And for anybody who's watching, when we say punt, we're just looking at these low price guys that you can squeeze into your lineup so you can get some of the more bigger dogs up at the top in those positions. You kind of almost, at some point when you're building a cash lineup, you need to punt somewhere. And usually it comes in at one of these types of wide receivers who, for example, Cedric Wilson. He's coming in. What'd you say, Dev? 3 what for Cedric Wilson?
3.1 on DraftKings.
Right. So he's coming in at 3.1. That guy doesn't need to do much for him to be worth the play. A couple of catches, maybe you get lucky and he scores a touchdown, and automatically that guy's paying for himself. Like, we're good.
He's in a good game environment. So he'll probably be, for those that do punt at receiver, it's probably going to end up being Cedric Wilson.
Yeah, no, I like that play. That's kind of the way I'm leaning myself. All right, let's jump into tight end here. What do we got on the tight end front?
Another kind of mid-range value position. Again, it's just, this slate is so loaded with these mid-range guys. First off, on FanDuel, Darren Waller at only 7K. Again, this is one of those pricing plays. There's not many of them. He's 7.6 on DraftKings. He's 7 on FanDuel. It's a dreadful matchup, but he had 19 targets last week.
He's an animal.
19 targets. And I have built around him on FanDuel, and you can do it I have a lineup that has, Kyler Murray, Waller, all the receivers I want, some stud running backs. Like, it can be done pretty easily this week with the way pricing is. So expect Waller to be very, very popular on FanDuel at that price. There's not a big enough gap between him and the DraftKings plays that we're going to talk about. So expect Waller to be very popular on FanDuel. Again, terrible matchup, but he is going to see every bit of, probably 15 targets with Josh Jacobs out. They're just going to keep throwing him the ball as much as they can. Over on DraftKings, though, we've got some really nice, I guess you would call them value plays in the 4K range. You got Noah Fant, gets that Jacksonville matchup we talked about earlier. Jerry Jeudy's out. Noah Fant's actually a really, really talented player. He's just been battling injuries his whole career. When he's healthy, he's really good. He had 8 targets last week, 62 yards. And Jacksonville got crushed by the tight end last week. So I would anticipate a really good game from Noah Fant. Tyler Higbee comes in at 4-1. Fant was 4-2. 4-1 for Higbee. So if you need $100, very similar numbers, 6 targets, 68 receiving yards. And then we got Jared Cook comes in. Pretty big discrepancy between his price on the two sites. He's 3.9 on DraftKings. He's 5.4 on FanDuel. Again, if you needed a piece of the Chargers, say on DraftKings you can't get Keenan Allen, and you really want a piece of the Chargers, you got Jared Cook at 3.9. That's a really nice price and a really good game environment. Those are the main guys I'm concentrating on. If you wanted to punt the position, Dalton Schultz, again, piece to Dallas. This is all about game environment. Don't sleep on David Njoku, especially in GPPs. I talked about him in the offseason. He had the best camp he's ever had. He was a first-round pick a while ago by the Browns. Always had the talent, just kind of a mental thing. Starting to put the pieces together. He was on the field almost as much as Hooper, just a few snaps less. So he's starting to carve out a really big role in the offense. Don't sleep on him, especially GPP play. And then the last play I'll mention is James O'Shaughnessy for Jacksonville. He was on the field for 80% of the snaps at just 2.7K. He had 8 targets for 48 yards. So most likely game script, they're going to be playing from behind again. Jacksonville will be. He'll be on the field a ton. Jesus. Sorry.
I guess he likes that play as well. All right. Yeah, no, all definitely viable plays there. See which way I land when I'm making my lineup this week. With the Chiefs being on the Sunday night game, we don't have to get tempted by Travis Kelce. So
or Hill and the Ravens. It's actually perfect because those are the, you always got to consider Lamar, Mahomes, Hill, and Kelce.
Yeah.
It's nice when they're not on the main slate.
Yeah. And then on the flip side too, you got Detroit and Green Bay on Monday night. So no Aaron Rodgers, no Devontae Adams, no Aaron Jones if you're playing main slate, which is what we're focused on. So maybe we'll get some new blood in there this time around. All right. Well, thanks, Dev. Anything else before we bounce over to Miz to talk about some GPP plays?
Nope. I will just mention defense. I don't write up any defenses in my article. And again, I'm going to reiterate this every single week because to me it's so important. Do not go to your, say, DraftKings and plug in your defense first and then build. That should be the last position you get to because it's just so unpredictable. In theory, Cleveland should have a great day. And if you can get them, great. But if I need to pay $3.5 to get Cleveland and it takes me off of a receiver or a running back I want, is it really going to be worth it? Probably not. So just keep that in mind when you're building. I always leave defense for last, see where I land. If I need to adjust, I will. So just always keep that in mind with the defense. And that's all I got. Yep.
And remember the golden rule with cash, right? You don't need to win. You just need to place in the 50% range.
That's right.
So don't get cute. Do what your gut tells you and kind of stick to your rules, your mental rules there. All right. Well, thanks, Deb. We'll pop back in with you in a second. Let's bounce over to Miz, who's going to chat with us about some of his GPP stacks and plays for tournaments.
What's up? I think we got a lot of options here. I think it's a really wide open week, which, it's a good thing for GPPs for sure. What I really am seeing really low ownership on, and I think has, actually a lot of potential to kind of just almost break the slate is the Vikings and the Cardinals. You can do a lot of different options here. Obviously, you can do Kyler, and you can do maybe Rondale Moore and Jefferson and Thielen. One of those guys is going off. It's just a matter of which one. But if you want to get some more salary and do some different things in your lineup, where you don't have to take some of like the more chalky running backs or things like that, you can go down to Cousins and pair him with Jefferson, the forgotten man from last week. Even though he was like he was basically a top 5 receiver pick in seasonal drafts. So we know Thielen, scored a ton of touchdowns last week, but he got those two, last week, and then he scored a ton last year. So there's a reason Jefferson was picked as highly as he was in seasonal drafts. So let's not let 1 week hinder our view on him, and pair those two up. And then if you want to get cheap on the other side, you can just use Rondale Moore at roughly $4K. This dude is on the field a lot. His snaps are going to start to go up even more. He's like a Swiss Army knife, right? He can run all the slot routes. He's like a running back once he catches the ball, and he can do all the jet sweeps, that we've seen teams adapt to and use more and more over the last few years. So he definitely has a solid floor with upside, for a couple touchdowns at a $4K price tag. So I think that game has a ton of potential to go over, not only overlooked, but to shoot out as well.
Yeah, the implied total for Arizona in that game is coming in at 27 points. And on the Minnesota side, it's a little bit lower, 20.5. But, you're looking at a 50-point plus game based on Vegas odds, and those are good games to target. Anything above the 50s range for over-unders is where you want to be.
100%. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that number start to creep up closer, the closer we get to game time. All right. And then, so the next one that I had is, as Devin said, we have a lot of concentrated ownership on like Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee and to a lesser extent, Robert Woods. But nobody's talking about Stafford, right? I mean,
Stafford looked phenomenal last week.
It looked unbelievable, right? So if they're gonna do good, and all this ownership is going to get there, right? Well, why aren't we playing Stafford? He's cheap. So just putting him into that mix, like say you're using both of them, let's just use the 2 highest owned guys of Kupp and Higbee. The cumulative ownership on them is going to be lower, even though they're high owned, because Stafford's is so low. So pairing them up with Stafford, and then maybe running it back with like Naheem Hines. I wrote in the article, he had a ton of touches last week, and everybody's so enamored with Jonathan Taylor, rightfully so, awesome running back. But Hines had 9 carries, 8 targets. And that's pretty good, healthy amount of involvement in the game plan. And if we think that Stafford is going to be, slinging this rock all over the place, right? Well, that means going to have to pass the ball, unfortunately. He can't just hand it off every time. So, and we know he likes to check down. So look for Hines to be that play that you can run it back with. There's so much uncertainty with their receiving corps that I really don't even want to bother with them.
Yeah, and I like that idea of pairing. You said Higbee and Kupp, or maybe even Higbee and Woods, or maybe Kupp and Woods with Stafford, right? Like loading up on that type of game stack when you have the quarterback and the wide receivers, and then you run it back with somebody on the other side. If that hits, it's usually at a low ownership as a cumulative whole, right? Not an individual ownership level. That actually worked out for me last week. That was like one of the only things I had as my saving grace was you know, I and this has nothing to do with the Rams, but I did that with the Chiefs, and you know, it tends to work out because not everybody in those large tournament pools is going to play all those guys on the same lineup. They're going to try and do, you know, some sort of variance. But as we know, as you know, we spoke about this on previous shows. Like, if you're going to take down a GPP tournament, you need some sort of stack somewhere. It's just how it is, and you want to points. You want to target teams with high octane offenses, and just, you know, kind of throw your hat in the ring that way.
Yeah, the total is a little bit lower, but I think if we, you know, since these guys are so in such good spots, right?
The total's coming in where it is because these defenses are really good. Indy's got a good defense, and obviously, you know, the Rams have a strong defense. So, but that doesn't mean they won't drop points. It is the NFL in 2021, right? So,
right. And the targets are so concentrated to certain guys, so you don't have a lot to worry about.
All right. Outside of the Vikings and the Rams games, anybody else you're looking at? What about our fan favorites here, the Falcons? Anybody on there that you're looking at GPP wise?
Yeah. So I hate Matt Ryan. He sucks, man. But
yeah, I think he's public enemy number one in fantasy terms, man, and in betting terms too.
Yeah, he always just fucks up. He's ridiculous, honestly. It's like he never goes off like when you want him to or when you need him to. It's just like in the most random ass games. However, he did do very well against Tampa last year in their 2 meetings, putting up, you know, about 27 or more points in each of those outings. But the Tampa defense is a little banged up in the secondary. So I think that will lend to Matt Ryan's hand, and maybe Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, super involved. He was extremely high owned along with Ridley last week. Both guys were very much involved, just didn't score. And after the first drive, it